In Taygeta, we tend to try to solve a mathematical problem using musical tones, imagined in the mind, or vice versa. For example, the target frequency of a spaceship is represented by a mathematical number, but it can and is stored many times as a series of musical tones, meaning that the direction of the Earth or anywhere else is represented by a tune, not with cold numbers.
Major third. Do to the first. Drop an octave. Do 1/2. Sol to the fifth.
This is not fiction, it is what I am telling you here today. That is holographic thinking, a conversation, an energetic direction using frequencies, and the perfect math between each tone and note, perfect relationship. You play a tune and the ship knows where that is. Wow, thanks for sharing. Are they supposed to be sending a message? Yes, as they say right there, that's a conversation using only frequencies. It is said that the universal language is mathematics, but it is not exactly like that. They are missing something. It would be the base 12 mathematics, but in relation to frequencies, not to mathematics in sordid and empty numbers without their own meaning, but applied to something, to music. If the tune is beautiful and perfect, with a harmonic relationship between each note, the mathematics that governs it is correct. Otherwise, the formula collapses. If the notes do not agree with each other, which is called cacophony in music, then there is an error in the formula. The average human sees boring numbers. We see music. I see, it makes a lot of sense. How interesting! Now I understand why I never liked maths here. It's because, as many people say, they don't see them as useful, and I understand them. They lack this, the simple application beyond practicality. Math is music, and music is math. It changes everything now. For example, a Wagner symphony can be written with notes on a staff, or it can be represented with a series of mathematical formulas that represent exact notes and frequencies and their relationship to each other. In fact, we see writing notes on a staff as too simplistic and leaving out subtle and necessary frequency changes that make music. Writing a symphony with mathematics representing frequencies is more precise and exact, and this is how music is written in Taygeta. Using mathematics to write music, you can go to infinity, representing increasingly subtle and precise sounds and frequencies. For example, take Mozart. I bet you that if he listened to how his music is interpreted today, he would say no, and that it is contempt, and it was not like that, because the original frequencies that he intended to share have been lost. If it would have been written in math, nothing would have been lost. Is it true that a large part of our music has been altered in frequency, that it had been changed in the last few years or something similar? Yes, that's yet another problem. It was altered to be dissonant, so that it does not move the emotions the same way. Like today, they try to eliminate emotions with the vaccine. Notice that the original frequency was 432, and today it is 440. 432. 4 plus 3 plus 2 equals 9. And 4 plus 4 plus 0 equals 8. The 9 here is the key. Synchrony, perfect numbers of mathematical and sacred geometry. Thank you very much. Incredible! It seems that we have nothing good left. Do you know where the influence of the great classical music can come from here on Earth, like Mozart or Beethoven or Debussy? Yes, they bring it from other planes, from themselves, but from above. They are starseeds. They bring their inspiration from the strong connection they have with the field, with the origin, with the original source. They channel it. Yes, but do you have records from what influence? What race could it be? I don't know. I would need to look into it. Do you also listen to music on the same frequency 432 or on a different one? 432, because it is the base, the 9 of sacred geometry and base 12 mathematics. Notice the perfect harmony in sacred geometry. We see that as a graphic representation of music. This is not only something that looks pretty, but it is visually captured music. And this is why healing using sound is a big key, and it is how it is done in many 5D worlds, including Taygeta. Each group of sounds or frequencies specially alters a group of tissues synchronously. By exposing the tissue to its correct frequency, all its cells are brought into harmony. I just feel that this works faster in 5D than it does in slow, dotty 3D, even though I know there were sound healing chambers in Egypt. And this is also why binaural sounds work, especially for relaxation, but also for healing. And if you combine it with a sensory suppression chamber, even better. If you float in a chamber where nothing is heard other than the tones, and you are there floating in the dark, in the water at the ideal temperature, it heals body and spirit. Wow, of course in water. Interesting. Only the water by itself already raises your frequency, and if you put quartz in it, even better. And what effects do binaural sounds have on the brain? Do they stimulate some parts of the brain? What changes at the biological level do they produce in our brain? It releases tension, harmonizes and stabilizes neurotransmitters. It brings you back to a greater connection with the source and with the unified field. It resets the brain as in meditation. Depending on the tones, one or another part of the brain is stimulated, or in itself altogether as needed. Thank you, Aneka. And can it stimulate the change of densities? That is, to be scalar? Actually, since everything is or are frequencies, it helps to be scalar. What causes if you hear sounds with subliminal messages? It unconsciously reprograms your brain. That's why you have to be careful with what you listen. As it is subliminal, they could program unwanted things there, but it is a useful tool if it's well used. And binaural waves? Do they have the same effect on our brain as on yours, or is it different? I don't know, but here everything moves faster in terms of changes and manifestations. Everything differs only by density. Thank you, Aneka. Here they say that the space is a void, and it is soundless. We know it's not a void, but is there sound? And if so, what produces it? Yes, you have to first decipher or understand what it is, or what they mean by sound. Because from the most practical point of view, sound is what is heard with the senses, contrasting with vibration and frequency. So sounds like something that is heard, there is not in space, but yes, frequency and vibrations. Space is not a void. They only understand it that way on Earth because they cannot detect what it is with their basic instruments and manipulated agendas for humans to not evolve. The space itself is a very high-frequency fluid, like water, and behaves like water. Even in the Bible, there is a talk about the waters above, perhaps a reference to forbidden knowledge. Space in itself is high-frequency water, the ether. It behaves like a fluid, exactly with its shock waves and all. The waves spread through space from the smallest to the largest expansion waves. This movement is of potential energy contained in the ether as a fluid, as each wave in the water contains potential energy that must be dissipated until the pond with water is in perfect balance again, that is, without the waves. In the ether or in space, these waves that are dispersed using the same mathematics and properties contained in fluid mechanics are gravity. That is to say, gravity itself is waves, like in water in the images above, where in the center, creating the waves, is something we call a standing wave. This is a Svaru theme, already explained, that every wave, when it receives a harmonic of its specific frequency, note again, harmonic equals music, a wave will remain as a crest above that never becomes a valley. This point where the potential energy concentrates and does not collapse again is called the node. The potential energy is concentrated in this point called node because the harmonic of the frequency that controls the waves in the ether or in the water, same principle, constantly feeds this point, preventing it from collapsing. Then, this point will always remain active as a node. This point is where matter will manifest in the ether. Matter is nothing more than potential energy held at a single point by harmonics of its frequency. The music manifests the matter, the correct one. So gravity is a flow or current within a sea of potential energy that is the ether. What gives the direction to potential energy, what determines the direction of propagation of the wave that is gravity, is consciousness itself. That is, gravity is a flow in the ether that is a materialization of an observing consciousness. Nothing exists if it is not being observed. The fact that by observing something it changes it, just by seeing it. This was proven in the 1909 with the double-slit experiment. This is in a very simplified and incomplete way, but Svaru 9 did a complete work on how exactly it is created. Matter is manifested from potential energy that is being organized by a harmonic of a frequency that is being orchestrated by the conscious observer. So space is not a void. It is just that we cannot observe the water or the fluid which is, because we are immersed in it. Like a fish, it is also in the water without knowing that there is something outside the water itself. And like the fish that can only perceive currents within the water that pushes it to one side or the other, we perceive those currents as gravity. Thank you very much, Aneka, for the extensive explanation. Yes, one of my favorite themes, after the time. I also remember that matter, if it did not have enough attention, would become potential energy. That's right, without attention or without a harmonic of a perfect frequency that is mathematically reliable, the wave collapses, returning what had been matter back to potential energy or more ether. So in space, would there be music? Yes, music is the harmonic of a frequency, the exact tones, the exact frequency with which the note receives the stimulus that does not allow it to collapse. And that harmonic music is the consciousness of the observer itself.